I'm going to flip over to Blackboard real quick because I want to see what is it y'all are working on this week. And y'all are on Module 8, so now I need to go to Netacad, which I think I'm already logged in. Probably logged out because it's been a little while since no, I'm still logged in. Good. Then I can see what it is y'all are learning about this week. I've got way too many classes right now. And that wasn't what I want to go to. I'm with modules. Don't forget the test for 4 through 7 is due tonight if you haven't done it already. That should have told me right off remembering on that. That over to chapter 8. All right, we're looking at the network layer on this one. Yeah, they stay. Not too much stuff. All right. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get started. So let me come back over to. We open these up in the opposite way, I think. Or I'm just not looking correctly. There we go. Okay. All right. Let me see if Kevin's gets in. He was hearing me last hour. That's odd. He must have changed browsers or something. You might not have heard me for a moment there anyway, right when you came in, Kevin. I wasn't talking. So now, can you hear me now, Kevin? All right. I don't know if he can or not. Well, I guess he can't because he just logged out. And I don't remember. Somebody had problems in the last session and they needed to change browsers. Went to Firefox and it worked. Chrome usually works. Whoever it was using Brave, and using some of those gets questionable to do some of this stuff. All right. So let's go ahead and get going on it. Last week I had to change it because I had AWS meetings that they gave me that I need to go to in Atlanta. Started at 12:30 that afternoon down there in Alpharetta. School sent me down on Sunday night so that I could do sessions on Monday morning. But that presented a problem for y'all at 12, 1, and 2 o'clock. So I did change y'all's session to 8 a.m. on Monday. I don't normally want to do them at 8 a.m., but I did it at 8 a.m. because I could get one in them. And then I did 2411, which was Ms. Hopkins' class that I've taken over. Their assignments are assigned on Fridays and due Fridays, so I definitely wanted to do theirs that day on Monday. So I did theirs on Monday. Also that evening at 8 o'clock. And then Tuesday evenings are gone, and Tuesday all day was tied up with AWS. And then I go teach another place on Tuesday evening in Tennessee. So that was out. So Wednesday after I got home from church at 8 o'clock. And back in the summer, I did do them I did do a session on or two on Wednesday nights after that, but I try not to do them in the evenings now. I know for some people that would work better, but just trying to look at my schedule, because if I do the stuff in the evening, that doesn't get me out of time working during the day. So I end up even with more work time. And that's then I have to do that versus checking y'all's email and stuff in the evening. So I did the other class on Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock. So I realized when I did it that some might have a problem like Ashlyn did, I think it was, that said she couldn't make it last week because it was early. So I knew that was going to happen on some of you, but I thought also it might free it up for somebody else that couldn't make it at this time, would be able to make it at 8 o'clock and be able to attend it for a change. Now, you're on chapter 8 this week, module 8. I'll call them chapters even though they're modules. That we're doing module 8 this week, which is the network layer. The network layer is layer 3. So we've gone through the physical and the data link. On the network layer, you're going to be working with packets. So they're going to spend a good little bit of time, and I'm going to talk about that, come back and talk about that in just a minute, about the packet, because they talk particularly about the header on it. A little bit different between, that's odd, oh, okay, I see. I can say my screen just changed, and now I see Skylar's joining. It's a little bit of difference between version 6 and version 4, but not a whole lot. The biggest thing is it is going to be bigger, the header, because your addresses are bigger. Instead of being 32 bits long, 4 bytes, they're 128 bits long, okay? So, which actually is going to convert into 32 hex characters for you, or 16 bytes long. So you get a good bit bigger one on that. That can't be right. Yeah, 16 would be right. Okay. 4 versus 16. Yeah, it's 4 times as long. Okay. So that's going to be your biggest difference on it. It's a little bit more stuff that you see in there too. But on the network layer, you're going to be dealing with packets. Equipment that you're going to deal with, the major piece of equipment you're going to deal with is routers. And that's going to connect your networks together, i.e. it's the network layer. So that's what you're going to be doing on this layer. So the data is going to be in the packet, is the format for it. Equipment's going to be the router. And in a lot of cases, you got routers and switches combined together nowadays. Used to be that you had routers, which were bridges and routers combined together, and really switches are replaced the bridges and your hubs. They're more intelligent than those two. And so you've got lots of devices out there that are really switches and routers. Your DSL or cable route modem is really a router and a switch. A lot of your wireless access points are switches and could be a router, but generally those are just switches. But what is being called modems today generally are some type of router, although they're also switches in most cases, because usually they got 4 ports or whatever, plus a wireless connection most of the time now to them all, where you can connect a number of devices together onto them, and then it is connecting your network to your internet provider's network. So it is a router. Okay. Now y'all can't see all this anyway, so it doesn't make any big difference. Let me flip over to the chapter real quick. So if you look on the IP version 4 packet header, sorry about that. You see there is a version which Obviously we tell it is the IP version 4.1. What's the length of the header? And then the total length of the whole packet. Some flags set in there. Time to live. That's a different one for you that you may not have encountered before. Time to live is saying how long will this packet stay out there on the network. Now that is done by, it sets on there what is the maximum number of routers it should go through on where it's going to. If that number of routers exceeds that number, and each time it passes through a router on the way, it will reduce that time to live by 1. And if it gets down to 0, and hasn't gotten to where it's going to, it won't get forwarded on any longer. So it's setting what's the maximum time on the network this packet should float out there. And if it gets longer than that, it ceases to exist. It'd be sort of like when you're born, if you were told you're going to live to be X number of years old and then die on that day. Well, that's not the way it works for us. We're all hoping for long lives, and we don't know when it is that we may die. Hopefully it's not today for any of us, but nobody ever knows. Then it's got a checksum on the header, and we talked about checksum in the previous chapter because it also puts checksums onto the frame. Though it stuck it on the trailer, I believe it is on the frame if I remember right. Then it has the source IP address and the destination IP address. Now, notice the order those come in. It's already come in, taken the frame apart, pulled the packet out, and now it's going to look at it and figure out further. And so it actually has the source IP address as the first one, the destination is second. That is correct. And remember, that is the addresses where the source one is where did it actually start at. The destination one is where is it actually going to. Now on the frame, it was what was the last piece of equipment it came from, and what's the next piece of equipment is it going to. But not the whole big thing, but just a small area on it. And then within there will be the data after that, which is the data, which is your segment, which will be passed down from up above. So that's that one. On the IP version 6 one, that IP version 6, the major reason for development of it was for the number of addresses on it, okay? That we ran out of addresses in the late 90s. Also, there was concerns about security and other issues with IP version 4, and they started working on a new version of IP back there in the early 90s before the World Wide Web caught on and everything went through the roof. So we weren't running out of addresses in, they were just looking at additional features and stuff, which would have really been 5 if you're wondering where 5 was. Well, as you get on and World Wide Web broke loose in the late 90s, we ran out of IP version 4 addresses. And IP version 6 was quickly developed off of what they were already working on and came out with this new addressing scheme on it. Which gives us 340 quadrillion records, I believe it is. I can't remember that word for it. There it is. Unidillion. Sorry about that. Unidecillion. Unidecillion. Addresses, 340 unidillion addresses. What that means is that it's got a ton of numbers after the first part of it, and you could count them all out there. Basically, they tell us that that number is equivalent to the number of grains of sand on Earth, and I've heard that from other locations too. I don't know if that's absolutely true or not. With the 32-bit IP version 4 addresses, we only had 4 billion addresses available. So it's gone through the roof. Of course, when they created IP version 4 back about 1980, they thought with that addressing scheme they came up with, they thought it would be more than enough forever. And then 20 years later, they ran out of addresses. We then figured out while they started to put IP version 6 in, but it required everything changing, that there were ways for us to get around, because prior to that point, every device in the world had a unique address. Then we went to NAT and DHCP and other things, and using private addresses within our network. We just had public addresses for outside, and like for the college, there's one public address that our web pages all go out through. We've got a couple others, I believe, for some other purposes. But if you go to send from one of the computers in the school, there's only one address that's used out there in the real world. All of these addresses are private addresses within the college, and so they don't count. So we've switched to that, and we stretched out until about 2 years ago. Somewhere 2 years ago, we've actually run out of addresses again in IP version 4, but we're gradually moving on to IP version 6 now. All of your devices you buy now are set up for both of them. Most of your ISPs give you both an IP version 4 and an IP version 6 address now. The two will work together. But IP version 4 is going to be around for a good while to come. I suspect it's going to be at least 10 more years or more before we see IP version 4 gone. Back in the 90s, first off, there in the late 90s, they told us we were going to be on IP version 6 by the year 2000. Everything would be. Well, then when they figured out these solutions, they said, well, everything will be converged to IP version 6 within the next 10 years at the most. That was 20 years ago, folks. We're still heavily IP version 4. So y'all have got to learn IP version 4, and when we get to subnetting in a couple of chapters, you've got to learn that, because you're going to use IP version 4 plenty still out there. So then they show you on it a little bit on it. Actually, a unidillion has 36 zeros after the 1. So they go through and show you some of that. It's got a little bit simpler header for IP version 6. It's got its own little header, and the headers are a little bit easier in 6 because they cut it down a little bit. Version's still on there. Type of traffic's on there. What's the length of this whole thing on there? And it's got a hop limit, which is the same thing as time to live. And that's the same essential thing. And then it's got the source and destination IP addresses. So those are very similar. And then they talk about routing, and what that is when, as your packets travel through the network, and mind you, they become frames before they get sent out as data, but as that packet's traveling through the network, you will keep changing. You will not be changing the addresses on it. You're trying to get to that ultimate destination, and that it changes it on it. So those do not change. The frame addresses change with the MAC addresses, but the IP addresses that are in the packet do not change as it goes. And so it keeps looking at those. It will keep a routing table on each of your devices, and we'll actually go look at higher level routing tables if it doesn't know the address for something. The routing table keeps track of the IP address related to the MAC address, okay? Where your DNS table kept track of the domain name to the IP address. So you've got that. In the routing table, you can do static routing and dynamic routing. You used to do a lot of static routing. You don't do very much static routing in there, but where you've got just a dead end in your network, you may well static route it. But static routing is where you put in what's the address it's trying to get to and which interface to use. Dynamic routing is where the device learns that information, As things come in from an address, it notes which port did it come in on, or interface, and then it puts it in the routing table of that address and which port it is, or interface. And then when it needs to send something to that address, it goes, okay, I got something from there. I know where to send it. What's the way to get it sent to there? If it's not in the routing table when it goes to send something, it will broadcast out a message to find out, where do I send this? The other piece on that is that if it doesn't know where to go, it will then use the default gateway to ship it out on. So, but it tries to find out where is it getting to, and to get the right MAC address assigned to it. That there is pretty much the chapter real quickly in a real quick synopsis. Questions for me on that? See if anyone else flipped in. No. And then remember, you do have the 4 through 7 tests tonight. Make sure that before you take that test, that you've made sure you met all the things that I had out there in the note to you about on Packet Tracer, so that hopefully Packet Tracer won't give you any problems. Y'all do have to use 7.3 in this class because stuff won't work. I'm taking a Cisco class this semester to start instructing at some point in time, instructor training in IoT. It's an older class, probably about the same age as the 2601 materials. And I discovered last night when I went to do one of my lab assignments, they gave me a whole group of them to do, but I don't have to do them immediate, that it wouldn't work in 7.3, that they changed how the device is set up slightly. And so their directions didn't quite work on it. I tried it in 7.2 because I still had 7.2 running on another machine. It worked fine. But your stuff for this class, you have to have 7.3. All right. Any questions for me? If there's not, I'm going to let y'all go. And then I'll try to get these grades posted this afternoon or whatever, but also I'm going to try to get those things uploaded. I'm also going to try to work on grading, and I've got to work on some grading of discussions for 2411 because the discussions are more critical on it. And I know I got to post something out there for last week on them, of a summary at least to pop up, and I need to get discussions all caught up and fully graded. Any others? I don't see any questions popping up there. Says a couple of people are typing, but that doesn't mean they're typing to me or to everyone. They could be just typing something else on their keyboard, from what I can gather. That if the keyboard's being used while they're sitting in the collaborate session, it picks it up as something's occurring on it, whether it's in something that applies to this class or not. All right, so I will get y'all all credits put out there. If you have questions during the week, send me notes and ask me, and I'll be glad to answer stuff as quickly as I can. This should be a normal week. Then things start going crazy again for the next 3 weeks. But this one, oh, y'all got cabling to do coming up also. I'm hoping that we can start doing that next week on it, and I'm thinking Monday I can have some people come here to Walker, and y'all can sit in the office, and you can actually sit outside the office. There's a desk outside, and work on it. And y'all can work on it around me working on these collaborate sessions. Tuesday I'm intending to be teaching it to the students over there, over here, and over there, over at Walker, 9:30 to 11 that morning, and I was going through and doing in class. And in the afternoon, 12:45 to 2:15 at Dalton. Y'all are welcome to join me in that session. And so I'll be doing then. And then Wednesday, I could go to another school, and then we can work on it again the next week also around that schedule too, of setting up some time. So I could go to Rome maybe on Wednesday if there's enough people want me to come down there. Because I'll have to do cabling for a term, it says it's a midterm exam. It's mandatory. And you're going to learn how to make 3 patch cables, straight through, crossover, and rollover. I'm going to teach you at the midterm, and that you got to come in to do that one. And then at the end of the semester, you're going to have to come back in again and do the 3 without assistance. Now, I have all of the materials you need, so you don't have to bring anything with you. And even when you do it at the end, I will have the color chart for you sitting there for you to look at. But you're going to be cabling the RJ45 plugs. Happen to be sitting on my desk. These to put onto the wire and getting all the right colors on them. And I will teach you how to do that. And actually should have a video and a PowerPoint out there somewhere on it for y'all to watch too. On the slides. We're going to use Cat 5 to do it on, but it would be the same on Cat 6. I teach this class from 12:45 to 2:15 on Tuesday and Thursday. I'll be doing it on next Tuesday. So if you could come during that time period, that would be great, because you could just sit in with the others on it while I'm doing it. It doesn't mean it necessarily takes all that long. That would work nicely on it, or I can arrange another time to meet you going for that matter. Walker, that the class I've got here is actually from 9:30 to 11, but the other part is also on Monday while I'm doing these collaborate sessions. Generally, just like this one, I've got usually 30 to 45 minutes break between them, because usually I run 15 to 30 minutes. And so I can go over and meet with some people on doing those on Monday. But that would be Tuesday for if you want to come join the classes on either campus. And so that's next Tuesday, which will be the 25th. But that would be, so if it's not those, so that's all we're doing. And this just counts as a lab, okay? But it's a mandatory lab, because Cisco requires you have to do the final lab to pass the course, along with doing the final exam and do the course feedback, which they'll make you do the final exam. And I require you to do the midterm before you can do the final lab, because the midterm is learning how to build the cables. And then that you actually do it without assistance at the end. But you've already made them, so you know how to do them. And at the end, you can ask all the questions you want when you do them at the midterm. At the end, I will actually allow you to ask me, if you ask me this, will I count you off for it if I answer it? And I'll tell you whether I'll count off or not. So you'll just have to find another time. So the other one I say is, generally throughout the day, most of the time, and that I can work around with y'all on it, with on Monday, for instance, here at Walker, and such. I'm going to post it out there in the class, because obviously most people in the class aren't in here today, because there's 40 some of you in the class and there's only 4 of you here. And then I'll get a schedule for when I'll go to the different campuses. But Monday, I'll definitely be here at Walker. And that you'll just have to drop in, and you may have to wait a few minutes on me, depending on the session. If you came on the half-hour basis, that's going to be your best bet on it. And then I'll work with y'all. And then I'm going to work around with y'all around the collaborate sessions, because I got sessions every hour starting on the hour, but generally they're done 15 to 30 minutes. Although like last hour in the 2411 class, Kevin can tell you we went for about 50 minutes. So I will have information out there on it. But as y'all know from in here, most of y'all have been in these all semester. that generally run a little shorter. So I can sort of help on that. And I can demonstrate to you, and then you can sit there and work on them. And I say, if you don't want to sit here and listen to the collaborate session that's going on at that point, you'll be able to just sit out in the outside of my office. There's the receptionist desk right there that's not used, and you can sit right there and work away up doing this stuff. Or the other part, I say I will go around. I'll also get some evening times on when people tell me if they need me to meet them in the evening. I'll set up some times on the evening. So we can find times to fit all of y'all in. That we've got a while to do this on. It's not got to be done here exactly at midterm. We just need to get it done before we get down to the last couple of weeks of the semester. Because, like I say, my requirement is you have to do these on a separate day from the final lab. And then those, I just soon have y'all do those in the last weekend where you can come in, do this, and do your final exam at the same time on the same trip to the school on it. And I'll set times up for all the campuses. That I'll see what times y'all come up with, and then do my best on meeting with y'all at time and place. But we'll just have to see how it all works. But I'll get around to all of y'all one way or another. All right, any other questions for me? Yes, we will be doing Cat 5, but if you did Cat 6, it's the same thing. You just got to cut the little piece out of the middle of it. It's the same plugs with the same color combinations. Just a little bit bigger back part of it for an RJ45 plug for Cat 6 instead of Cat 5. Because you've got that channel inside there in the Cat 6. But we will be doing Cat 5. I've got the cable, I've got the plugs, I've got the equipment, everything we need. So y'all don't need anything except yourselves. And then I say I'll even have the color codes, because they're laying on my desk somewhere right over there, or should still be laying there unless somebody's moved them. Yeah. So then I've got a little piece of paper that I'll have laying on my desk, and if I'm into other campuses, I'll mark it on the board or whatever for you. So you need to be learning them, but I'm not holding you on knowing exactly what they are. Okay? All right. If there's nothing else, I'm going to let y'all go, and I'm going to stop the recording.